Hello, everybody. Welcome to the welcome to the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Prize Picks. We have a new sponsor today. Thank you to BetMGM. We are now sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll have an offer about that later in the show. Joining me, as always, some Cliffy. How was your weekend, Cliffy?
Not too bad, I guess. Didn't cash on Saturday. Saturday was a rough night for me. In the DFS streets, those things just happen. I went with a Vegas stack because Jonathan Marchessault, he was back. Oh, there's your goblet. He was back in the lineup on Saturday night, and with a short-ish type slate, I think there were only 7 games on Saturday night, 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. I thought we could get low ownership on him, and I thought it would be worth taking the stab on him. So I stacked the Eichel line on Saturday night, and they didn't do anything. That's just kind of the way it goes. I still think it was a fine play. Marchessault came in at 4%, or thereabouts, or lower in some other contests. So kind of happy with the play. Didn't work out. That's DFS. How was your weekend?
Oh yeah, I got curb stomped on Saturday. I used that Vegas line as well. I also used another line that did the Blues did nothing. I also had, was it Forsberg in that, who went like -9? Was that Saturday?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an early log out for me on Saturday, but had a decent NFL day yesterday somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I was frustrated with Saturday because I had Dak and Caulfield in my early lineups, and they did pretty well. Dak scored. Caulfield, I think, had 2 goals in the shot bonus or something like that. Jake Allen didn't do that well in net, but at least he ended up with positive points, which certainly didn't look like it might be the case. So I was thinking, maybe if Vegas 1 can get there, I could have it, or Vegas 2, I guess. I could have another decent night, but alas, absolutely nothing. I did get 20 points from a 1% owned Evan Rodriguez, though. Evan Rodriguez won off 20 points, 1%. I'd rather win a GPP, but I also don't mind giving myself a little slap on the back. It's one thing that we probably should. I mean, there are only 4 games today, so we got some time to talk about some things. That's one thing that I don't think that we don't talk about enough, and I don't think it's used enough in DFS, is using players that are returning from injury, especially if the news isn't really known, right? Like when we did the show on Saturday morning, we didn't know if Marchessault was going to be playing that night. I think he was at practice on Friday, but that didn't guarantee anything. Same thing with Evan Rodriguez. He had practiced on Friday, but it wasn't guaranteed that he would play on Saturday night. Evan Rodriguez came in at 1%, which is something you don't get from the top Colorado players, right? I think Jonathan Marchessault, I was just looking at the $3, I think it was. He came in at like 2.5%. You know what I mean? So I using the players that are coming back from injury, I think is something that is underutilized and can get you some very low owned combinations, even on shorter slates. Like I think it was 7 games on Saturday. So I'd say that's one piece of advice. Certainly something that I try to keep in mind is always paying attention to who's returned, not only who's returning from injury, but how long it's been since that news came out. Like, we'll take the Washington guys, for example. Like we found out last week, like Thursday or Friday, they would be returning on the weekend at some point. When they didn't play the first game, it was obvious that they were going to play on Sunday. So the ownership would probably be, pretty reasonable for them. But if there had been no indication that they were coming back to the lineup, right? And then all of a sudden, early Sunday afternoon, it's like, well, Nicholas Backstrom's in the lineup tonight. There's probably not going to be much ownership on him. And that's something that, if you're playing DFS day in and day out, you're probably paying attention to the NHL news. Pay attention to when the injury information comes out, because when it comes out is pretty much just as important as the actual information itself.
Yeah, and Evan Rodriguez ended up being on that top line too. Mikko Rantanen went down to the second line, especially on like Fridays and Saturday slates. I don't want to like sound old, but like being older has its advantages because all these guys in their 20s are going out and going to their clubs and they're they're in the champagne room, and then we're sitting in bed with neck and back pain going, ooh, Evan Rodriguez top line, let's put him in. You know what I mean? But people don't really react to news as well on the weekends as they do during the week. So yeah, I mean, that is something to like. Between that and like late swapping, they're two of the more underutilized things in DFS. We got a $50 super chat, by the way. Let's get to that real quick. From B Funk, we want the funk. Thank you. $50. That is incredible. I was going to say 69. 96X last night, including first in the $12 single entry on DK. Thanks for all your free content, boys. No, thank you for tuning in. I saw the lineup. It was incredible. Congrats to you. I appreciate the support of you tuning in. And again, we're just here giving our advice. We'll probably be wrong more than we're right, but you're the one clicking the players in. So not us. You're making your own lineup. So congrats to you.
Yeah, we're just here talking about the games day in and day out, and players we might play, players we might not play, players we might avoid, etc. We'll talk about dozens of players and a half dozen goalies or more every single show. It's up to the people watching to actually put it in the lineup. So congrats to you on the great work. Congrats on the great night, and thank you very much for that $50 super chat.
Yeah, especially in single entry too, for the amount of like spaghetti we throw at the wall. We talk about it off air. It's like crazy what some people take from it, and what some like everyone else, like everyone takes something different from the show, and it's just sometimes I wish I could take my own advice on some of the good things, but we talk about a lot, so it's hard to go, oh man, if I just listen to myself in 37 minutes of the show. But it's not, you don't do that. You know what I mean? Like we have to talk about everything, and I like helping, and I see a lot of these wins and a lot of these good nights, and just happy. So congrats to you, and keep it up. We have a 4-gamer today. 4 games are always interesting. Especially this one. We have Buffalo at home to Flyers back-to-back on the road. There's McDavid on this slate. The Senators are on this slate. There's Seattle with a massive road total in Montreal. So we should probably get into it a little bit here. But you know the drill. Before we do, give us a like and subscribe. We like the likes. So you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaway, and much more. Once you subscribe, smash that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Also, if you didn't know, we have a Hall of Fame, Stokastic Hall of Fame. Here are the steps to get in the Hall of Fame. First one's pretty easy. Just go to stokastic.com/avatar and download the Avi and change your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel to it. Then you got to place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. You tweet the win to @StokasticHOF on Twitter. If you don't have the old tweet machine, you can email us with your screenshot and you'll win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You can only qualify once a year. And you also get a shout out on our weekly Hall of Fame segment. So if you like your ego stroke, it's another perk. I do, but they don't let me in because hockey contests aren't big enough.
Yeah, you got to get into that mini max a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thanks, DraftKings. Let me just take a stay hydrated, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a while since Josh has brought the goblet on the show, so it's an important slate when the goblet makes an appearance.
Pink shirt, goblet, big day, big day. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.7 total heading into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 3.9 total. Who was in net for the Flyers last night? Was it Hart?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Samuel Urson will probably be in net tonight, or it could be Hart on a back-to-back. We don't know. Old man Craig Anderson confirmed for the Sabres. Massive ownership here on the Buffalo top line. I just don't know how they don't get there tonight against the Flyers team back-to-back on the road. Possible AHL or net. These lines are a mess. Coming in 35+%, but they have a massive projection, almost 50 DK points. Like, what are you doing with the Sabres top line here? Because I feel like you have to make a choice between – I don't feel like it. I know. You have to make a choice between the Sabres and the Oilers tonight.
Yeah, I don't imagine it'll be Carter Hart starting. I don't think he has a back-to-back start yet this year. I was just looking quickly over his team.
Torts is notorious don't start goalies back-to-back coach as well.
Yeah, so I would expect it's Urson. I mean, sometimes, there are goalies in the AHL that are just kind of waiting for their chance to get called up to the NHL. I'm not sure Urson is that guy. 910 save percentage this year, 893 last year in the AHL, have been playing over in Sweden for a few years after being drafted. I mean, any goalie can have a good night on any given night. Phoenix Copley is carrying the Los Angeles Kings right now. Like, this guy was a third goalie / AHLer for pretty much his entire career. That's just the way the nature of the position works. It is a very good spot for the Buffalo top line. Philadelphia hasn't really been like that bad defensively for a little while now. I was looking at some of the expected goals numbers. Like, they're basically in the middle of the league since American Thanksgiving, which is about their last 20 games. They're right between Dallas and Winnipeg. Like, it's not that bad defensively. It's just the problem. Well, there are a lot of problems with the Philadelphia Flyers. One of the big problems is that they have trouble creating offense. And if they can't create anything, it just keeps the puck coming back into their zone and keeps their defense and their goaltending constantly under pressure, right? So, with Phillies, let's say, struggle to create consistent offense consistently at 5-on-5, it can leave them in the defensive zone a lot. And that's a problem when you have an AHL goalie in net like Samuel Urson. I was looking at the Buffalo top line's recent numbers, not like blowing the doors off. Their last 100 minutes, 3 expected goals, 4 per 60 minutes, 4.5 actual goals, 4. Those are still really good numbers, just not what we saw earlier in the season. They've had 100-minute stretches of north of 6 and 7 goals per 60 minutes. Like, they've just been absolutely absurd. Like Alex Tuck, everybody thought he was a good player in Vegas. I don't think anybody thought he would be potentially a 90-point winger type guy, but that's kind of the pace that he's been on this season. It just speaks to how well that Buffalo top line has played basically the entire season. Like, they haven't really had a cold stretch of like 6 or 7 games in a row where there, nobody on the line is ever getting there, right? It just seems like maybe they have an off game once in a while, but it just seems like they just constantly get there over and over. And I think that's why that top 2 stack probability is nearly 50% per our top stacks tool. They're 18% higher than the next closest stack, that being Edmonton. So it is a pretty good spot for the Buffalo top line. I think namely because of the way the line matching is going to work here. Now, it depends which line Philadelphia or Buffalo considers their top line, because Buffalo can do the line matching at home here tonight. I assume it's going to be the Travis Konechny, Joel Farabee line that they're going to be matched against, just because Konechny has been Philadelphia's best player this year, and I don't think it's particularly close, even though Kevin Hayes got the nod to the All-Star game, which is a whole other subject I could go on for like 20 minutes, but I just don't feel like it right now. I think they recognize Konechny is the most dangerous player the Flyers have, and so for that reason, the Buffalo top line is probably going to see a fair bit of them. That Konechny line has certainly not been that good this year. 1.9 expected goals for, 4 expected goals against per 60 minutes in their time together. It's a .950 save percentage behind them that has saved their goals against numbers. And with Samuel Ersson in net tonight, I don't know if they can expect a .950 save percentage behind them. If they really do start giving up just a flood of expected goals against, like this Buffalo top line can do. So I think it's a really good matchup at 5-on-5 for the Buffalo top line. It's just whether it's a really good matchup for the power play. Sorry. If there's one thing Philadelphia is doing exceptionally well and has been for several weeks now, it's penalty killing. Again, over their last 20 games, going back to Thanksgiving, the third fewest shots against per minute when they're down a man. The only teams that have been better are Carolina and Calgary. That is exceptional penalty killing. Now, their actual goals against is a little bit lower, thanks to 840 goaltending. But it's still, 12th in the league by goals against per minute. This is a good penalty kill that the Flyers are boasting. Buffalo's power play is a big part of their upside, as it is with most top lines across the league, right? 24 of Tage Thompson's 56 points have come on the man advantage. That's like 40% off the top of my head, something like that. It's a lot. And if the Buffalo power play doesn't get there, they have to do it all at 5-on-5, and that's asking a lot. So if you're looking for a reason not to play a line that honestly in some contests will see players push 50% ownership, I think you could see some contests, single entry, especially single entry or 3-max, where Tage Thompson is pushing at 50% ownership here. If you want to avoid that super heavy ownership, the reason is the way the Flyers penalty kill has been going, but the Buffalo top line has been able to shred just about any penalty kill that they have faced. So that's kind of the other side of the coin. But if you're looking for a reason, if 7.5 or 8 hours from now, if we're looking at the scores and for some reason it's like, Buffalo won 3-2 or something like that, Tage Thompson had a goal, and Skinner had an assist and 4 shots. If you're looking for a way that this line doesn't go off, it's the Philadelphia penalty kill is pretty good. So that is my one concern for Philly one. Other than that, like you said, back-to-back on the road, AHL goalie in net, it's a really good spot for Buffalo. And I'm not going to say don't play them because of the ownership, because I think they might still have pretty good leverage just because of how good that line has been and how good the 5-on-5 matchup is for Buffalo. I think the real question here is what to do with the depth lines, because there's a lot of depth players on both sides that are of interest. On the last show, I mentioned how Buffalo had been playing a close game. I forget who it was against, but they're at home and they're up 4-3 late in the game. And Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka, and Tyson Jost all rode the pines for the final, I think, 7 minutes of the game plus overtime. And that happened again over the weekend against Minnesota. It was a close game down the stretch. Quinn and Peterka and Jost all rode the pines, I think, for the final 7 or 8 minutes of regulation in that game. And that's a problem for ice time. Like, if you look at the ice time that Buffalo's second line has been getting of late, there are a lot of like 12, 13-minute games. So while Quinn, Cousins, and Peterka are still playing well, there are times, Cousins will probably play 17 minutes because he gets the top power play time, but you might get Peterka and Quinn 11, 12, 13 minutes, basically fourth line minutes. And that's one reason why I'm not super high on going to that Buffalo line. But, if the top power play goes off, then obviously Dylan Cousins will probably get in, and that can bring the second line along, etc. So you can use them. I'm just really worried about ice time here. I honestly think the depth line for Buffalo that I would prefer to go to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Okposo, Krebs, and Gergensons. Those guys have actually been playing like anywhere between 13 and 16 minutes a game, because they do get used at the end of games. They do get used in I don't want to say shutdown roles necessarily, but at times when the team needs more defense rather than offense. And Quinn and those guys will just sit on the bench. And, Poso had a hat trick a few games ago. It's because he's still a pretty good player. He just doesn't get a ton of minutes or top power play time. That Buffalo third line has been playing to a slow pace, but nearly 50% by expected goal share, which is more than enough, when you're playing against the second and third and fourth lines from Philadelphia. So I honestly don't mind if you want to do like just a one-off Kyle Okposo or a one-off Peyton Krebs or something like that. There are going to be games that, when they play, if this is a tight game, they're going to end up with more ice time than Quinn and Peterka. I still think there's a lot of upside to Quinn, Peterka, and Cousins. I'm just worried about the ice, and Jack Quinn just really hasn't been shooting a lot of it ice time related. So I think it's the Okposo I like for the depth. People want to play Olofsson and Middlestad or whatever. I think that's fine as a two-man as well. Olofsson had the overtime winner against Minnesota the other night. He can definitely score. It's kind of like that Mike Hoffman situation. Maybe he only plays 14 minutes, but he's still probably going to score over 20 goals. So I don't mind that, but I think it would be the Okposo line that I would look to for maybe like a two-man or just a cheap one-off or something. But yeah, great on the Buffalo top line. For the Philly side, it probably is just going back to Frost and Van Riemsdyk and Tippett. I do think that they see the second and third lines from the Sabres here. They have been playing well. 3 expected goals for, 2.5 against in their minutes together, 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit with Frost and James Van Riemsdyk. Buffalo's penalty kill is pretty bad. Owen Tippett has, I was just looking, 26 shots in his last 10 games, so you can stack the whole line. Like, he's still getting involved offensively. Considering how cheap this line is, JVR, Tippett, and Frost, I'm surprised they're not really coming in with that much ownership. Like, this seems like one of those lines that could easily go with, a heavy Edmonton stack or an expensive Ottawa stack or even a game stack here with Buffalo. I mean, how many more 12-goal game Buffalo games do we need to see before we start game stacking them every once in a while? Like, stacking Philly and Buffalo in a game stack is perfectly fine as well. I think it's the Frost line that I like best. They've been playing well. I don't think they see a ton of the shutdown matchups. It's a good power play spot for them. That would be the line I would go to. I will say the Hayes, Lawton, Wade Allison line is also playing pretty well together. 3.1 expected goals for, 3.1 actual goals in their time together. Lawton is number 2 in ice time over their last half dozen games behind Travis Konechny amongst their forwards. And you get Hayes on the top power play unit. So I think there are multiple multiple lines that are playable from the Flyers, but it's either the Frost or the Hayes lines that I would go to. I think the Okposo line for the depth on the Buffalo side. But honestly, if I'm looking for a depth line in this game, it's on the Philly side. It's not on the Buffalo side.
Yeah, and here's why. Here's my thoughts on why the JVR Tippett Frost line is going to come in so low. Owned. There are 3 lines on the Seattle team that we'll get to next, the 3.6 total, who are similarly priced. So you're going to see a lot of Buffalo one with some of these Seattle lines. So I think, like, on a 4-game slate, as long as you're not stacking lines going against each other, I think game stacking is perfectly fine. And I agree with you. If I'm going to game stack this Buffalo game, it's going to be Buffalo 1 with that Van Riemsdyk line. Get 2 guys on the top power play for $9K. Sabres penalty kill, as you mentioned, is not good. Craig Anderson's 644 years old. Like, yeah, he has good games once in a while, but it can't be relied on. So, yeah, like, I don't mind that Flyers line. I don't know, like, how much. Like, I don't think you have to full stack the line. You can with Tippett. You can leave Tippett off and get, JVR and Frost for $9K and then, plug in a high upside one-off, but it's fine. And then on the Buffalo side, I know the Flyers have a good penalty kill, but here's my worry for the Flyers penalty kill. One, Samuel Erson's is that it's not Carter Hart. Two, if they decide to shade towards Tage Thompson's side with, like how Thompson kind of sets up in the Ovechkin office, Jeff Skinner's just going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because Skinner can shoot the puck too. Like, if it's not Thompson, it's Skinner, and Tuck is a excellent puck mover. So, like, this is why the Sabres can absolutely just shred anyone on the power plays, because Tuck can move the puck well. Rasmus Dahlin can just absolutely bomb them from the point. If you shade towards Thompson, Skinner's going to kill you. If you shade towards Skinner, Thompson's going to kill you. And then Dylan Cousins is a good net front presence. So, like, I don't even mind one-offing Cousins here. Like, if you want to go Edmonton tonight, like Dylan Cousins right now is projected at 4%. Even if it comes up to like 8-9%, like you're getting a power play one guy in a 3.9 total on a 4-game slate under 10%. So, like, I get the concerns with the shots here, but like I don't know how many shots the Sabres are really going to need to score on.
That's a pretty good point.
So, like, yeah, I do love the Sabres top line here. I also don't mind adding in Cousins or one-off in Cousins if you want to go with Edmonton. So the depth stuff, like Dylan Cousins is my favorite depth player, obviously, but like if you do really need some cheap two-mans, like Krebs Okposo for 5,400 lets you get in power play stacks, this and that. So yeah. Surprisingly, I do like the Flyer side a bit here, because like everyone's like, oh yeah, Buffalo, but like they're awful defensively, and we saw that in that Columbus game where Thompson had like 48 goals. Like they went up like 7-0 and then ended up being like a close game. So like I think there's some serious merit, especially if you don't want to eat the Seattle chalk, to pivoting to the Flyers here. So let's move on to that Seattle game. The Seattle Kraken with a 3.6 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.8 total. Party Marty, Senor Fiesta, Martin Jones, and Samuel Dikembe Montembeault are confirmed. They said Mike Hoffman's going to be back. Did they skate?
No.
Yeah, so I mean he's in our fourth line right now on the lineup builder, but it could easily be like Dvorak, Hoffman, and Josh Anderson on that second line. We'll have to see in warmups. Not too much ownership on the Habs top line here. Like we've talked a lot, or you have, about Nick Suzuki lately and his lack of shooting. But Caulfield shoots, and Martin Jones is in net, and they're coming in under 7%. They're not overly expensive here. They're under 16K if my math is correct, which could be wrong, but it's around that 7% going into Martin Jones. Dumb on that. Because if you look on the other side here, there are 3 lines on Seattle and they're all getting double digits. So like,
that's actually crazy.
Yeah. And so like, while it's a very good power play spot, the problem is Seattle splits their units almost evenly.
And neither unit's playing that well right now.
They both suck.
Okay, that's a better way to put it, I guess.
So like if you take ownership into account an account on all these lines, I honestly think my favorite one-off from Seattle is Daniel Sprong, because he scores on the power play.
Yeah, and so you're looking to get Sprong. Looking to get Sprong.
Yeah.
I like to get Sprung. All right. The way I was thinking about Montreal one is, I used them on Saturday night, and I think it's a stack that I'm going to use a lot more often. It's just putting Doc and Caulfield together and leaving Suzuki off. The problem with Suzuki right now is he's just, like you said, he's just not shooting it like at all. And even if he goes out and gets a goal and an assist on DK, that's not even 3x, right? And you can't rely on him going to get a shot bonus with 2 assists or something like that. That's just not something that's kind of in his fantasy profile right now. Like he needs either, a 3-point bonus with 3 assists, or like a goal, or a goal with 2 assists, or score multiple goals on like 3 shots. You know what I mean? Like it's a pretty thin path with Suzuki. It is Party Marty and net. Like we have seen a lot of teams pile up a lot of goals against them. So, if there is a situation where I wouldn't mind stacking the entire top Montreal line, it might be tonight with Seattle in town in that goaltending in net, because the Seattle goaltending, as good as their offense has been, their goaltending has just been absolutely putrid. I think putrid would be a good word.
That might be being kind.
Basically, since the start of last season, nothing has gotten better. So I don't hate the idea of full stacking that Montreal top line. Like you said, getting like good leverage here tonight. 5th in leverage behind Edmonton, Buffalo, and 2 Ottawa lines we'll get to next. And I mean, it's just a function of, those other lines, just a function of them being so good offensively that people just won't own them to the right level. But, this is one of 5 lines at, around or above 10% top 2 stack probability on this slate. So I think there's definitely some merit to using Montreal here tonight. If you are worried about, Kirby Dach doesn't shoot a lot either. The difference is, I think he's 3,800 against Suzuki's 5,300 on DraftKings. Just one off Cole Caulfield. I think that's perfectly fine. Like Caulfield's with the rate that Caulfield shoots, he's basically in play almost every slate. Just use him as a one-off if you don't want a full stack. If just duo stack with Kirby Dach if you want. They play all the important minutes together, so you don't have to include Suzuki. I just think that this is one of those spots where you might want to include them. 2.9 expected goals for, 2.7 against for that line over their last 4 weeks. They've been playing well. The shooting percentage is at 7%, not 20% where it was back, like early November or whatever it was. The other thing here is Montreal has been using the Jake Evans line as a shutdown line. Now, for me, that says that they're going to be going into the Matty Beniers line. The Jake Evans line will be going into the Matty Beniers line. So that leaves Dach and Caulfield going up against that Wenberg-McCann line from Seattle. And that Wenberg-McCann line, like I know McCann has been scoring, and it's because he's shooting 27%. But that line just has not been good. Wenberg and McCann, 60 minutes together this year, 2.3 expected goals for, 3 against, 3.8 actual goals against, as the goaltending has predictably let them down. Like, I think this is one of the few 5-on-5 matchups this Montreal top line will get that actually favors them. So I don't mind Montreal 1 here. We don't know exactly what the rest of the lines are going to look like because we don't know what they're going to be like with Mike Hoffman. Maybe Hoffman just replaces Richard on the 4th line, and then, you don't have to worry about him. But I think there's a chance Hoffman just slots alongside Josh Anderson and Christian Dvorak. And if that would be the case, I would have a little bit of interest in that because Hoffman, Anderson, and Dvorak would be going out pretty consistently against the bottom 6 from Seattle. Not bad matchups for them. And you get Christian Dvorak on the top power play unit for whatever that's worth, and it's worth very little in Montreal. So if we get some sort of confirmation that, Hoffman is going to be playing on the second line with Dvorak, I would have a little bit of interest in them. With Slafkovsky there, I have none. Slafkovsky, Dvorak, and Josh Anderson are rocking a 37% shot attempt share together this season. Now, not a huge sample together, but Dvorak and Slafkovsky in over 100 minutes together, 30% expected goal share. They're getting absolutely killed. So, for that reason, unless Hoffman's there, I don't want to full stack the line because it's not a good 5-on-5 line. Josh Anderson is not a big two-way play driver. He can drive play offensively, but he's a big liability defensively, and that's not going to help Slafkovsky and Dvorak, that's for sure. So if Hoffman's on that second line, then I would have some interest. I don't really have a ton of interest in that Armia Evans to Donoff line. The only reason I would is because the Beniers line hasn't been particularly good defensively anyway. And as a shutdown line, that Montreal Evans line should see some reasonable minutes, right? Because they are going to be constantly going out against the top line from Seattle. But the only depth line I would have interest in is Anderson, Dvorak, and Hoffman, if Hoffman ends up on that line in warm-up. Other than that, it would just be one-offs, like a one-off, Anderson, one-off Armia, one-off Hoffman, something along those lines. On the Seattle side, it kind of sucks to see that Seattle 3 line, Gord, Bjorkstrand, and Tolvanen come in with so much ownership. That was one of the lines I was kind of looking towards to maybe stacking with expensive Ottawa players, with expensive Edmonton or Buffalo players, what have you. Because Tolvanen's fitted like a glove alongside Gordon Bjorkstrand. That line's up around near 40 minutes so far. 2.8 expected goals for, 2.4 expected goals against. 2 out of the 3 players, Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen, playing on the Vinny Dunn power play unit. So you get 2 guys at least on the same power play unit together. They're just coming in with absurd ownership. Like you mentioned, I'll bring up our top stacks tool here real quick so we could show Seattle. 1.5% ownership on the 4th line. I think that makes sense. But 14.7%, Matty Beniers, 10.6%. On the Wenberg line, 13.7%. On the Seattle line. You add all those up together, you're going to get, including the 4th line, about 4 in every 10 DFS lineups is going to have some sort of Seattle stack in them. That's just kind of the problem with using, those depth lines from Seattle. I don't hate the idea of using Beniers, Burakovsky, and Eberle. They are shooting way too hot at 22%, but they're all on the top power play unit together. They'll all skate around 16, 17 minutes, which is actually kind of high for the Seattle team because they do spread the ice time around quite a bit. It is the Beniers line I like best, but I'm not going to lie to you. Bjorkstrand, Gordon, Tolvanen, I think, is the line that's playing the best for Seattle at the moment. So I don't even hate just a one-off Bjorkstrand, one-off Tolvanen. I think if you need a center, a one-off Yanni Gord is just fine, something like that. So for me, it's Montreal 1, maybe Montreal 2 if Hoffman's there, where we might not find out until warm-ups. On the Seattle side, it's Seattle 3 that I like best, but they're coming in with the most negative leverage. So I don't know how excited I am to use them. Other than that, it would be the Matty Beniers line, just because they are all in the power play together, and Montreal's penalty kill is an abomination.
Yeah. And I think using these Seattle lines are fine. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're just way higher owned than I want them to be. If you're jamming them in with Buffalo 1, just be aware what you're doing when you're filling in your last spots with defensemen. You know what I mean? So, like, you don't want to be duped in a smaller field. Generally, you aren't. But, just be aware. And I went and looked while you're talking about the Canadiens. They've played 40 games this season. Here's the shot numbers. Nick Suzuki in 40 games has 72 shots on goal. Kirby Dach has 69 shots on goal. That's 141 shots combined. In 40 games, Cole Caulfield has 136. So, like, the other 2 have 5 more than Caulfield combined. So,
I mean,
Caulfield's shooting almost 4 shots a game. So,
yeah, in the 20 games since Thanksgiving, Suzuki has 29 shots. That's less than 1.5 shots per game over his last quarter of the season. That's serious Alex Wenberg territory.
yeah,
It's really hard to play. It's hard to play Suzuki unless he's like 4,100 or unless he starts shooting more.
Yeah, 72 shots in 40 games. Like, that's under 2 a game. It's just he's just not shooting. Anyway, as we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Click the link in the description below to get 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is awesome because it's not like a daily fantasy sports contest. It's just daily props. You're not playing against other people, so you don't have to worry about Jake taking your money. There's no sharks, no optimizers or mass entries. A 5-player lineup can net you up to 10x your entry fee. You can also use multiple sports. So if you're into NBA, you can put some NBA in there with some hockey, some UFC coming up this weekend, football, college basketball, all the good stuff. Got a couple NHL prize picks for you. I was looking through it before the show. Not legal in New Jersey, but I am able to see them. They're both Edmonton props. Leon Draisaitl over 3 shots on goal, 3.0, which is nice. So if he ends up on 3, it pushes. And then Zach Hyman over 3.5, so he needs 4 to get that, but he has been shooting the puck recently. So those are your prize picks. Make sure to click the link in the description below and get your 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum and your deposit match bonus. Let's move on. Nashville Predators with a 2.9 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.1 total. UC Saros, Cam Talbot confirmed. Senators power play has been cooking. Nashville penalty kill is trying to put out fires, and they just are using gasoline to try to put out the fire. I really like the Senators power play here. They're not getting much ownership. They're not as expensive as Buffalo and Edmonton. I think you kind of find yourself in more of a mid-range build here with the Senators, but I think there is a lot of merit to going to a Senators power play stack just because, I think people are a little bit nervous about the 3.1 total here, scaring off some people, but, this is a spot. Predators penalty kill really bad. Saros has bailed them out of late, but it's, they've given up, I think it's the second most shots. We're talking about how the Flyers give up the third least. The Predators give up the third most or something around there. It's definitely close to the most. And then on the Predators side, these lines are just brutal. It's a pretty good matchup though. I wish some of these lines were playable with a full stack. I just can't get behind anything really.
The Nashville penalty kill, basically for the entire season, has been roughly the middle of the league by penalty kill percentage. They have definitely seen some pretty low lows on the PK. Don't get me wrong. And if you look at their actual goals against, it's not very far from. I think it's just outside the top 20 since Thanksgiving. So near the bottom 10 of the league since Thanksgiving. Even UC Saros hasn't been able to save this team on the PK. And Ottawa's top power play minute or top power play. Jeez. Has been excellent in their last 40 minutes together. I was looking since December 1st. Now, remember, Tim Stützle missed a few games in there with that shoulder injury, but over 13 goals per 60 minutes on the power play, shooting under 20%. So it's not like a wildly high shooting percentage or anything like that. That's basically been the case for them all season. They are just really, really dynamic with the man advantage, and it's like the top Buffalo guys, it's a big part of their fantasy profiles. Stützle is at 17 power play points on the season, which I think for him as well is about 40% of his overall production. So yes, the power play is very important for Ottawa. And not only does Nashville's penalty kill struggle at times, they do take a fair amount of penalties. They're at 3.5 times shorthanded per game. League average is at about 3.25, give or take. So they're well above average in that regard. And Ottawa leads the league in power play opportunities per game. They're just a shade ahead of Buffalo that we talked about earlier. So Ottawa certainly could see 4 or 5 power plays here tonight at home against Nashville. And if they do that, they stand a pretty good chance of, at least one power play goal, if not multiple, which would be really nice. The problem with the Ottawa top line had been shooting percentage. That's something that we talked about over and over on the show pretty much whenever Ottawa was on. Over their last 4 weeks, though, 3.5 actual goals scored per 60 minutes, 2.9 expected goals for. They've started to actually score, and being able to score a 5-on-5 is kind of the final piece for all their top guys to unlock that next level of fantasy upside. And if they can do that consistently, if they can, start being, they don't have to be Buffalo 1 and score 5 goals every 60 minutes. Even somewhere between 3 and 3.5 would be a massive upgrade over what they did over the first 25 games of the season, and would be a pretty big difference maker in the DFS realm over the final half of the season. So I do think it's a pretty good matchup for that Ottawa top line. I don't think it matters what the 5-on-5 line they're going to match against is. The Nashville top line, I call the Parson and Forsberg line the top line. Any line with Philip Forsberg, I consider Nashville's top line. People want to use another one, go right ahead. I think it's going to be the Forsberg line. The Forsberg line, over 70 shot attempts against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's a really, really bad defensive number. The Nino Niederreiter line, 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes together, also a really bad defensive number. Ryan Johansson and Mark Jankowski in 40 minutes together at 5-on-5, 67 shot attempts against per 60 minutes, also a really bad defensive number. This team sucks. The only thing that's saving them is UC Saros. We saw that the other night when he had to make over 60 saves so the team could win. Like, this is just a really, really bad Nashville lineup, and I think it makes for a tremendous matchup at 5-on-5 for that Ottawa top line that has been dominant, like more or less the entire season. They just have been having trouble finishing. If those percentages are starting to turn around, like I said, it makes a huge difference for them in the DFS game. So I really do like the Ottawa top line here of Stützle, Tkachuk, and Giroux. They're coming in with very good leverage. Like, that Ottawa top line is third by top 2 stacks on our top stacks tool, but is coming in 6th in ownership and has the 3rd highest leverage on the slate. I really do like Ottawa 1. If you want to get more of a power play stack and put in DeBrincat or put in Batherson or just use all 5 guys from the top power play unit, I think all those things are definitely in play here for Ottawa. It's the Ottawa power play guys that I really like in this matchup. On the Nashville side, these are frustrating lines to work with for a number of reasons. One is they've really started to spread out the ice time in Nashville, which is a big problem. Like, I think Michael Granlund is leading the forwards in ice time over the last 6 games at like 17 and a half minutes or 18 minutes or something like that. Like, Philip Forsberg's at like 16 to 16 and a half minutes. It's a problem. They're really spreading out the ice time. I think for that reason, I would probably go, if you need a super cheap line, I think Niederreiter, Granlund, and Glass is definitely in play. Cody Glass, I talk about scoring chance contribution numbers here on the show from time to time. It's from a guy on Twitter that just literally just watches hundreds of games every year and hand tracks everything that happens. His name's Corey Snazier. I should probably shout him out. Like, Cody Glass's scoring chance contribution numbers this year are similar to Steven Stamkos. This was a guy that was a highly touted prospect. He just never figured it out at the NHL level. If he actually has started to figure it out, maybe this is for real. Like, we need to see a bigger sample from him, but he's been very, very good for them. So I don't even hate just a 2-man of like Niederreiter and Glass or something like that. I think that would be the line I would go to. Duchesne, Johansson, and Jankowski seem like the 3rd line at this point, so I'm not super high on them. Forsberg, Parson, and Sissons certainly can be used, especially considering Forsberg's their best offensive player, and you generally want to get the best offensive player in your stack. But I think it's Niederreiter and Glass as a 2-man that I would lean to here from the Nashville side.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of these Nashville lines. Like, I guess like Glass, Niederreiter is fine because they're super cheap. Like, they're 6,700 for the 2 of them. They've been playing pretty good hockey. So, but this game for me, Ottawa power play. If you want to stack the top line, you can. Drew has been very, very good. If you want to leave him off for Batherson or DeBrincat, I think that is fine as well. But yeah, just not a huge fan of Nashville. I'm a big fan of stacking against Nashville, though.
And we do like the city. Let's say that.
Yeah. Oh, the city's great.
Yeah.
Just needs some like a casino with a nice sports book, and I might move there. Anyway, yeah. We have an NHL 5-day free trial, risk-free, that you can sign up for. It'll give you full access to everything Stokastic has to offer. Projections, ownership, top stacks, rankings, everything you need to succeed at NHL DFS. You also get access to the Discord, which is invaluable. Get you all the late-breaking line news. We talk about all sorts of things. Those are the projections. Those are ownership projections. Those are the top stacks tool. That is the lineup builder. At the end of the show, if we have time, we will build a lineup with you guys. I love the lineup builder. It is my favorite tool. Besides Niehaus telling me how to cook steaks in a catering tray in the chat. He's He's who he is. So come in, join the Discord, get that 5-day free trial, and we'll see you in the Discord. Let's get to the last game of the night. Edmonton Oilers, 3.2 total. Heading into Los Angeles, the Kings have a 3.3 total. Stu Skinner is confirmed. Phoenix Copley is probable. While we are on the air, Oilers had morning skate. They kind of mixed up their lines a little bit here. Klim Kostin on the top line with McDavid and Yamamoto. Ryan McLeod is on the second line with Draisaitl and Hyman. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins drops down to the third line center with Will Fogle and Matthias Janmark. Jesse Puljujarvi down on the fourth line. Just trade him already. Anyway, now that they Oilers kind of depified, that's not even a word, but depified their lineup. Not really sure here because you would think that the Deneau line is going to go out against top comp. I would assume he's going to go out against McDavid, which is probably why that Kings second line is getting so much ownership right now. Just because they're going to play, they're probably going to get a minutes bump here. I don't like stacking Edmonton and leaving off McDavid. So 5-on-5 wise, I think the second line is my preferred line. But if you want to leave off, Ryan McLeod and adding Connor McDavid there, just listen, I'm a broken record with the Oilers, guys. Just play the power play, guys. This is a very good power play spot. Phoenix Copley has been out of his mind, which is the only, drawback here. But this is the Oilers here. Their power play is ridiculous. You play the power play, guys. With Ryan Nugent-Hopkins moving down to that third line, I think he'll be he usually is anyway. He'll be the lowest owned of the power play guys, but especially here now, being on the third line. So I think, getting him in will get you on a different path. On the Kings side, that second line is getting a ton of ownership, and I get it because they're going to, they're cheap. The Oilers stink defensively. I just don't know. I might just go to a power play stack of my own here. Go Kopitar, Kempe, Fiala, and call it a day.
Yeah, here's the thing with Ryan McLeod on the second line for Edmonton is if this game is 2-0 in the second period for the Kings, is Ryan McLeod going to stay on the second line, or are they just going to stack up McDavid, Hyman, and Draisaitl on the top line and play them for 40 minutes? You know what I mean? That's kind of the problem. Is unless Edmonton gets out to I'd say significant and early lead, I don't think McLeod lasts the entire game on the second line beside Draisaitl. Now, you can still play him because all he needs at his price is basically to chip in, he's min-price. All he needs is an assist and a couple shots, and, he smashed his value. He can get there in one period on Draisaitl's wing. So it's fine to use him. I just don't think it's perfect. It's just not necessary. The McDavid line is probably going to see Kings 2. Kings 2, since adding Alex Iafallo, has been just lights out defensively. 1.9 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's an elite defensive number. 0.9 actual goals because Phoenix Copley has been playing so well. McDavid is matchup proof. We always say that. And especially where, he's going to come in. We have him at 12% ownership here tonight against Tage Thompson's 38% ownership. That should probably give you an indication that maybe it is a good idea to play Edmonton tonight. But if I do that, I'm with you. It's power play stacking. It's playing McDavid and Draisaitl with Hyman, or, I think you can do McDavid and Nugent-Hopkins and Draisaitl. Like you said, Nugent-Hopkins is probably going to be the lowest owned of the four power play forwards. So there are a number of ways you can stack Edmonton here. I mean, Edmonton's still drawing amongst the most power plays in the league. They're third in the league behind Ottawa and Buffalo. So actually, you get the three teams drawing the most power plays on an 8-game slate here tonight. That should make things pretty interesting. The Kings below average by time shorthanded per game, so they're giving up more than the league average in power plays per game. So Edmonton should get maybe 4 opportunities here tonight or something. The Kings penalty kill, not very good. We say that basically every show. 22nd by shots against since Thanksgiving. I think they're bottom 6 by goals against, and that's even with Phoenix Copley in net for a lot of those games. I do think with how low Edmonton is coming in,
it's another reason to not play Buffalo 1 here tonight, right? Is like if you don't want to play a Tage Thompson line that honestly could come in at like 40% owned in some single entry or 3-max contest, go power play stack the Edmonton Oilers at 1/3 the ownership. You know what I mean? So I do like the idea of stacking the Edmonton power play here, just because it is a good power play spot, and two, it's presents much less ownership than Buffalo at home earlier in the slate. So I do like the Edmonton power play. I will say on the Kings side, and I hate that they're coming in with as much ownership as they have, but that Fiala-Velarde-Lizotte line is kind of interesting to me. They're right around 50 minutes together, a little bit less. 61 shot attempts for, 53 against per 60 minutes, 54% shot share. They're going to be used against the bottom six from Edmonton. And let's just say that they had to move Ryan Nugent-Hopkins down there for a reason. It's because the bottom six from Edmonton was not doing a thing. Velarde has really good defensive metrics this year. Fiala has really good offensive metrics. I think they complement each other pretty well. Lizotte is cheap. Velarde and Fiala both on the top power play unit together. So you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the power play. They might come in with 8, 9, 10% ownership maybe, depending on the contest. But I still think going up against Edmonton's bottom six, it's a pretty good matchup for them. And the Edmonton penalty kill is not good either. And like I said, you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. So out of all the Kings line, I think it's Lizotte, Velarde, and Fiala that I would lean to. But in this game, it's the Edmonton power play I like best.
Yeah, Edmonton power play for me for sure. Kevin Fiala is one of my favorite one-offs tonight. Like him and Dylan Cousins, if you're looking to avoid that massive top line ownership. You probably could fit Buffalo on with Fiala easily. You just have to get it a little creative, but Fiala's a shooter, and you're going to get these Edmonton matchups. The Edmonton penalty kill is awful. There's a reason there's the "here come the Oiler" mantra or whatever you want to call it. They're just bad. So yeah, Fiala Velarde 2-man top power play 9,900. You can do some stuff with that. People. And that's why they're getting more ownership than the top line. Because, the top line gets 2 guys in the top power play as well. But, Kopitar isn't the DFS player he was 3 years ago. Kempe shoots, sure, but, Quentin Byfield doesn't do too much on that line. Fiala's the scorer. He's the shooter. If Velarde, contributes a little bit, you're doing well here. So, yeah, Kings 3, Edmonton power play for me. That is quite the 4-gamer we have here. Coming up after us, we have the No House Advantage Monday Night NBA at 3:30 with Gundacker and Terry, then the NBA Deeper Dive, and then NBA Live before lock. So make sure if you're an NBA fella or lady, just stick around for that. Let's talk a little defenseman here. There's some big guns on this slate, Rasmus Dahlin, 7,300, Roman Josi, 8,900, Tomas Chabot, 6,300. And then, you have the other power play guys in the 4Ks, like Doughty and Barry, that you have to at least consider. I think I'm going to take a stand here. I think my favorite defenseman here is Tomas Chabot. I think Rasmus Dahlin is perfectly fine, and he's very chalky. And if you want to put in Buffalo and Dahlin, that might be a little bit way to eat the chalk a little bit, despite all 4 of them being very chalky, because it's going to put you on a drastically different build. But you bought over $1,000 cheaper, an amazing power play spot. So you bought my favorite defenseman. These punt guys like Jamie Oleksiak at 3K, Nick Seeler min price. Again, this slate for punt defenseman. My son Artem Zub at 3K is all right. Alex Carrier, 2,800. But I think this is an interesting night to spend up.
Yeah. Here's my problem with playing Roman Josi tonight is that his ice time has gone down. He's been at about 24 minutes a game over his last 10 games. And with it, his peripherals have gone down. He was at 4.5 shots per game through his first 28 games per season, which is just absolutely absurd
shot rates. That's down to 3.6 per game over his last 10 as his ice time has gone down. Like, it's tough to pay basically Austin Matthews prices for a defenseman shooting 3.5 shots per game. You know what I mean? I don't care about the matchup. So I think, he's going to be higher owned, but I think the super expensive defenseman I would use is Dahlin. But I agree with you. I think of the 6K plus defenseman on DraftKings tonight, it's Shabbat I like. I also like Darnell Nurse. Not a lot in the mid-price range I like. Drew Doughty, obviously fine if you want to go Kings power play against that Edmonton penalty kill, but it's probably Jake Sanderson from Ottawa that I don't mind. I think it's a better matchup than people realize against Nashville, and I think he's having a very underratedly good season for Ottawa. He's really good at driving the play. Don't mind him if you want to get a bit different in that mid-price range. Should probably mention Yam Cork from Philly. Tony DeAngelo got benched in their last game, and York got moved to the top power play unit. So something to watch at Philly warmups. Is DeAngelo even in the lineup? Probably should be. York is going to at least be running the second power play unit, if not the top unit. Don't mind him. Justin Schultz as well. I always play Justin Schultz over Vinny Dunn. Obviously, I would have burned me the last couple of games. Don't mind him. Alex Carrier as well.
Oh, man. Do we have to play goalie tonight? These choices are just miserable. Who you liking in that?
I think tonight it'd be a road warrior night for me. Stewie Skinner, now that he's confirmed, don't mind him on the road against Los Angeles. UC Saros as well, going up against Ottawa, a team that has struggled to score 5-5 for most of the season. If Nashville doesn't crash on the penalty kill, Saros can have another good night. If you want to pay up, I think the guy to pay up for, I guess, would be Craig Anderson, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I think for me, it's Saros or Skinner or maybe Cam Talbot for Ottawa.
Yeah, I think, my favorite game for goalies is that Predators Senators game. It's just, if you want to, strap in to your racing chair, you can put in Phoenix Copley. I don't think any goalie is out of the equation here besides Samuel Ersson. You can play Samuel Ersson. He's definitely at the bottom of the list. I think you have to consider everyone, but the one I would consider the least would be Ersson. It's just, if you have any lean at all tonight in goal, just play that guy. But I think I agree, Stu Skinner, Talbot, Saros. The spend up would be Craig Anderson. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I didn't think he'd be as chalky as he is, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm going to live by your words and try to introduce a little spice here. Oliver Bjorkstrand from Seattle.
There we go. We got 2 third liners for our hat trick picks. Mine's going to be Kevin Fiala.
There we go. I like it. You want to try build a lineup real quick?
Yeah, let's build a lineup.
Let's use our lineup builder here real quick. You can see, obviously, the names and the lines for each team. You see their prices. These are the DraftKings prices, obviously, ownership, individual projection, and line projection. I was thinking just show a game stack here for that Philly-Buffalo game because it's something that
I was thinking put in Buffalo 1 with Dahlin and see how limited you become.
I mean, if you put in Buffalo 1 and Dahlin, and then you go for, I think Erson's the cheapest goalie on the slate. You're not going to use him against your stack. So I'll go with Montembeault. Let's use Montembeault and Kovacevic as a pure punt. You have 10,200 left for your secondary stack. That's if you use the cheapest goalie, second cheapest goalie you can use that's not going against your stack, and a full punt. You're looking at 10,200. If you
let's scream Seattle.
Yeah, if you want to line it up, you like Niederreiter, Granlund, and Glass would fit. I mean, we could use that. We could use Josh stack the Sabres.
Yeah, let's take out Dahlin though, and let's try to game stack and see what we can do.
Okay, let's do that. Let's go back to Philly. I'm going to use the Van Riemsdyk line. Seems reasonable. Okay, so 13-8 remaining.
That's not bad.
Yeah, let's use Stewie Skinner. Let's use Stewie
Yeah.
Skinner. Let's use Skinner in net. So 31.50 for our 2 defensemen left. Do you want to correlate the defenseman, or does it not matter?
So one thing I've been doing less is correlating defensemen when they're cheap, just because like yeah, maybe they're going to get some 5-on-5 ice time together, but when you're down to the nitty gritty there, I think you go for the high upside plays like Carrier or, like the guys who might get the block bonus instead of forcing a correlation in with like some guy on Buffalo or Philly that you don't need to. Like Sealer makes some sense there. He's min price. But like on the Buffalo side, you're not going to go plug in Jacob Bryson just because you're playing Buffalo. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, we could put in Jan Cork, but I think that would, yeah, that's only if D'Angelo doesn't play. I don't think. Let's just put in Carrier. So we had 3,500 for the last defenseman. We could use Cody Ceci, Matt Roy, Hamonic, Justin Schultz. He's 3,500.
Yeah, Justin Schultz is an interesting upside play there.
Power is $100 too expensive.
I think Schultz is the guy there just because he gets the power play time in a big total.
Okay, let's do that. So there is our sample lineup. Game stacking, Philly and Buffalo. Stewie Skinner in net with Alex Carrier. Justin Schultz as our defenseman. You can see the 94.85 projection. And, of course, right there you can export it to bring into DraftKings or FanDuel, or if you want. So that's how your lineup builder can be used pretty quickly to build just about any lineup you want. You can see how they fit, which guys will fit, what they project like, and so on. I find it to be a very handy tool.
Yeah, so you're pretty capped if you're putting in Buffalo 1 with Dahlin.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, but, like, it's possible, which is nice to know because I think a lot of people won't click in Dahlin with Buffalo 1, so that might put you on a different path. But, yeah, that, like, the lineup builder, it's so much better building lineups there than, like, on DraftKings because then it saves and you're like, oh, man, I should have played this one. You know what I mean? So, no buyer's remorse there, so you can fool around. You can see projections, this and that. But, yeah, that's the show. 4-game. Got to talk a little strategy, which is always nice on these short slates. So for Cliffy, I'm Josh. Thank you to Prize Picks. Stay tuned for the NBA show. We will be back tomorrow, and good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.